A warm welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. These are the top stories on the continent. Ethiopia vows to track the perpetrators of Friday's deadly cross-border massacre in the western Gambella region, saying they want the green light for a joint military offensive with South Sudan. The UN voices deep concerns over the use of torture in violence-torn Burundi, citing 600 cases since last year. Meanwhile, as relations deteriorate with neighbouring Rwanda, so does trade. And in South Africa, attacks on sugary drinks triggers condemnation from the beverage industry and applause from health officials who are keen to fight obesity. But first to our top story, Ethiopia has vowed to find the perpetrators of Friday's deadly cross-border attack in the western Gambella region, which killed more than 200 people. The government's pointed the finger at South Sudan's Merle community and says it's seeking the green light for a joint military offensive with Juba. Well, during the raid, over 100 women and children were kidnapped. Officials say rescue attempts are currently underway. Well, to bring us at the very latest, we can cross to Will Davison, who's in Gambella City. Will, good evening to you. What's the latest that we have on this cross-border massacre which took place on Friday?
Well, as you mentioned, the Ethiopian government has taken a strong, aggressive stance after this attack. Initially, they talked about having a right to pursue the attackers into South Sudan. And now today, the language, while still determined, seems to be talking about the need for cooperation with South Sudan's government to try and capture the attackers and hopefully retrieve some of the abductees.
Now, this isn't the first conflict, if you will, within this western Gambella region, but you're saying now that South Sudan and Ethiopia are essentially keen to work together.
Well, I mean, I think there's that aspiration to work together, but I mean, the important thing to remember here is that South Sudan's government at the moment is very preoccupied with its own internal conflict, a very serious 2-year civil war. Former vice president turned rebel leader Riek Machar is set to return to Juba to take his part in a transitional government any day now. He was actually supposed to leave today, but it was delayed. So the South Sudan government really is preoccupied with that issue. There is going to be this kind of joint cooperation. That may happen in the months to come, but it doesn't sound like a practical suggestion for the days and weeks ahead.
OK, Will Davison reporting for us from the Gambella region in Ethiopia. Thank you very much for keeping us up to date. Well, as you've just heard there, owing to conflict in the Gambella region, the long-awaited return of South Sudan's rebel leader Riek Machar has been delayed. Machar was due to return to the capital at Juba today to take up the post of vice president. This in line with a peace deal signed between Machar and President Salva Kiir. Well, conflict broke out in South Sudan back in December 2013 when Kiir accused Machar of planning a coup, triggering a cycle of retaliatory killings. Have a listen.
We attribute it to logistical problems. Of course, all of you know that our leader, he is based in Pagak in South Sudan. To access Pagak to Juba, you need to pass through Gambella in Ethiopia. So all this contributed to his to cancellation of his arrival.
Next, Libya's parliament has postponed a crucial vote on confidence on a new UN-backed unity government seeking to assert its authority. The international community sees the government of national accord as the best hope for resolving years of chaos in Libya. Officials say the vote, which was scheduled for today in the eastern city of Tobruk, failed to go ahead. That was owing to huge differences. The UN says it's deeply concerned by a sharp increase in the use of torture in violence-torn Burundi. One team on the ground said they'd registered at least 600 cases since tensions first spiralled a year ago. Well, the revelations come a day after UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon described the situation in Burundi as alarmingly precarious. For months, Burundi has levelled accusations at Rwanda, suggesting its government is supporting Burundian rebels and therefore stoking violence. Well, Kigali has strongly refuted those claims. The result, a sharp downturn in relations between the two countries. France 24's Nicolas Germain has the details for us.
The thermal springs in Rugombo are well known in the region. But since last year, tensions between Kigali and Bujumbura mean the number of tourists has plummeted. Burundi accuses Rwanda of supporting Burundian rebels, a charge Kigali has always denied.
Nowadays, we can go 3 days in a row without seeing one Rwandan tourist. It's because of the tensions between our two countries.
Trade has fallen between the two countries, so Rugombo's residents now focus on Congo, which lies just the other side of the Ruzizi River. The crisis in Burundi is also an economic one, and many are looking for jobs in Congo.
We work in the cassava fields in Congo. We get on well with the Congolese.
Manufactured products like soap and matches are sent to Burundi, while bags of rice and cassava go to Congo.
We have no problems with Burundi. We can cross over easily and can buy whatever we want in Rugombo.
It's a clear consequence of the strained relationship between Kigali and Bujumbura. The ties between Burundians and Congolese are now much stronger than in the past.
All right, time to bring you a look at some other stories making headlines on the continent. Gambia has defended the arrest of several opposition leaders and their supporters after the UN called for their immediate release. The opposition members were detained on Sunday after accusing the government of killing party leader Solo Sanding, who died in police custody. Washington has meanwhile condemned the arrest, calling them a severe response to recent peaceful protests. At least 2 people died and several were wounded as protesters stormed an airport runway in Mali's northern town of Kidal. Demonstrations came after French forces arrested several people suspected of links to Islamist militants. Protests appear to signal a deterioration in relations between foreign forces and the local community in the town. In northern Cameroon, a trip by the UN ambassador Samantha Power has begun horrifically after an armoured jeep in her convoy struck and killed a 7-year-old boy. The incident occurred near the small city of Moloko, where Power and her aides were headed to meet refugees and other displaced people. Power said she'd learned of the death with, quote, great sorrow. And a court in South Africa will convene in June to determine the sentence for Oscar Pistorius for murdering his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. In March, the Paralympian's legal team failed to overturn a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment upgrading his conviction from culpable homicide to murder. The double amputee killed Steenkamp on Valentine's Day 3 years ago, saying he mistook her for an intruder. And finally, we stay in South Africa, where the country's finance minister has announced a tax on sugary beverages to be implemented as soon as April 2017. While the beverage industry are firmly against the idea, others hope it could just be the answer to curbing the country's obesity epidemic.
South African soda lovers will have to brace themselves financially, as a new sugar tax is set to hit their favorite drinks next year. Though numbers have not yet been set, supporters are proposing a steep 20% levy, and consumers such as security guard Thomas Itole aren't happy about it. He relies on sugar-filled energy drinks to keep him awake through his long shifts.
It means I'll have to limit, and then these things is going to affect my work opportunities. The way the boss need, they know me, I'm active. So now they'll see, Thomas is going lower, and then it will not be good.
Many feel the same way and don't think the government's tax will achieve its goal of improving the health of its citizens.
I don't think people would buy less, because if someone really likes something, someone will buy something that person likes. So I don't think it's a good idea to increase the prices.
According to World Health Organization, 1 in 4 South Africans is obese. Advocates of the new tax believe it will help curb the risks associated with obesity.
I think people need to realize that there are more people dying from obesity than from any other disease in the world. You will die from it prematurely. It's as simple as that.
South Africa is the latest in a wave of countries to introduce the tax. Mexico imposed their sugar tax in 2014, while the UK is set to follow in 2018. But the beverage industry is coming out to fight the idea.
There definitely will be job losses. And certainly the small business owners are going to be extremely impacted. You can imagine your small business owners in the townships who rely on beverages categories for their income. And this tax is just going to hit them very hard.
While the tax is expected to come into effect next year, its success is not guaranteed. Higher taxes stamped on cigarettes and alcohol already are doing little to encourage a curb in consumption.
The Eye on Africa team is back in about 45 minutes' time. Do join us then. Up next, though, Mark Owen with more international headlines.